I think by now it's pretty well established that if you want the ultimate bang for the buck wristwatch, China is the best place to head. And I purchased these two watches recently from AliExpress, which is kind of like the Chinese version of Amazon, because I saw that they were a new sub-brand from one of the most popular watch brands on the platform, that being Addy's Dive. Now, it may have a terrible sounding brand name and logo, and believe me, we'll get back to that, but as far as build quality for the money goes, Addy's Dive are almost unbeatable. Now, the reason that they can offer these for so cheap is because they're basically direct to consumer. So rather than buying from your local jewelry store or from an online store like Amazon, let's say, you can buy these directly from one of the Chinese sites like AliExpress or the Addy's Dive website. And you can get these watches directly from the factories that make them with no one in between, essentially. And unlike some of the other cutting out the middleman brands, they seem to pass the savings on to you. But until now, like with many of these Chinese brands, there's been one big compromise, and that is the branding. Well, outside of the fact that a large portion of their repertoire consists of clone watches. But yeah, it doesn't exactly look or sound the best, does it? Now, Addy's Dive have tried to address this in the past, because the icon logo that they initially came out with is very nautical, as you can see, with the scuba gear on there. And it didn't really suit certain watch designs that were more classically inspired like this one. So what they did was they released this cursive edition of the logo with this almost handwritten italicized typeface. And while that definitely is a big step up for watches like this, it still isn't really the best because, you know, it's got the word dive in it, even though a large number of the watches bearing that name, well, you won't be going anywhere near the sea with them, really, will you? And it looks like Addy's Dive have listened, because what we should have in here is their new non-dive sub-brand. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you because you're going to chuckle at this. I'll whip it open and we'll get right to it. Well, yes, here we are. Are you ready to try on your new Addy's skin? Yeah, out with Addy's Dive, in with Addy's skin. And when I first saw this on AliExpress, you know, I could not resist picking one of these up. I mean, I can't be the only one that thinks that this sounds like a contraceptive brand. Honey, did you remember to put on your Addy's skin? Now, to me, previously, the Addy's was just as bad as the Dive part on the name, so they could have done with switching both entirely, I think. But they just decided to change to the Dive for kin. So perhaps they were playing off the idea that this is like a sibling brand to Addy's Dive, but then they've gone and put a crown logo above it, like it should have been Addy's King or something instead. But I don't know, when I look at this here, I just can't not see Addy's skin. The watch itself, the watch bearing this bizarre brand name, looked pretty good, actually. I picked up two different ones. So in here, we should have the K001, which was the first model bearing this name, and then the slightly newer K004. And I really wanted to check these out, not only for the hilarious name, but also just to see how they stack up in terms of quality versus, you know, your typical Addy's Dive watches, which tend to be cheaper, but also some of the slightly higher end options like San Martin. They arrive in a nice zipped box here, which seems pretty good. Definitely higher quality than the clamshells. Might save your nails a bit too. Okay, let's start with this blue one first, because this was the first one that released with this brand name on. I mean, everything about this, do you not think that even this card looks like something you'd get with some protection, shall we say? But this watch here immediately struck me as a copy of something else. And I can tell straight away through the plastic, this is perhaps a little bit better quality than the standard Addy's Dive stuff. It seems to have a bit more of a complex finishing going on under there. And straight out of the box, well, this is a San Martin SN0144 clone, isn't it? Or at least the dial certainly is. I will put the two up side by side, and luckily I ordered the same colour for each. And you can see there is a more than a passing resemblance there, isn't there? So it does seem like these Chinese brands are even starting to copy one another. Now, it's not a full clone. The markers and hands are definitely a bit different, but the main dial surface is remarkably similar. So this has the same Jian dial effect, like a pottery enamel dial effect. It looks marginally different. This one is perhaps a tad more subtle in the flesh than the other one. It also has bit of a greater contrast between the color in the center and then the darkening at the edges, but pretty much the same still. Now, I'm pretty sure we also have a slight misalignment problem with the left markers. Now this one's going to be a bit tricky to see, but you can just see on the marker here how the upper one just seems a bit kinked upwards on the right side. It's not severe, but it's definitely enough to notice with the naked eye, I would say. And also it seems staggered maybe a fraction across to the left. That's always the risk you take when applying these markers individually, which is what I'm assuming has happened here. One of them was just not placed perfectly. And I also think the bottom center here, the left one, is maybe a fraction higher. Now I don't want to be too picky because these watches weren't exactly expensive. I did manage to snag these together with a discount code, and while they were already on discount, for £256 all in, which is what, just shy of 130 quid each. And for that price, you can't expect perfection, but these issues do need pointing out. These days, these watches do cost significantly more. Like the listing price for each of these is around or just over £200 each. And that's before any sort of discount codes or deals. But you should be able to realistically get both of these for around or considerably under £200 a pop. And both are essentially the same watch from what I can gather. They've got a near identical spec sheet. I'll just give you a look at that Addy skin logo, which visually does look better than the other logos. I mean, it's still pretty generic, and the whole Addies thing, I'm really not quite sure what they're going for with that. But yeah, visually, it's not nearly as distracting as the diver style icon they used to use. And it is at least pretty symmetrical, unlike that cursive style font. As for build quality, well, the finishing is pretty decent. Hard to judge the exact weight though on this because it's so kind of skinny, as you can see here. We'll get these sizes in a moment, that it inherently isn't super weighty. Obviously it's heavier than a battery powered quartz watch, this one being automatic, but yeah, it is pretty compact. I'd say the case finishing here is slightly better than a standard Addy's dive, but I don't think it's at the level of a San Martin. And while the polishing is up there with San Martin, I think it's the brushing that falls a little bit short, especially here on the bracelet. You can just see, I don't know, the way it catches the light is more like the entry-level brushing that you often see. Very skinny hands on this one too, much thinner than on the original San Martin version of this watch. I can't remember if that one was integrated bracelet, but this one certainly is. The lug width here, I mean, I've got that as 13.7, so peculiar width. Hard to measure even on the back, maybe 13.5. You do get a pretty nice quality stainless steel bracelet here. They do also look like solid links. I just checked off camera. I wasn't 100% sure because they feel quite lightweight. And you've got this butterfly style mechanism here for the clasp, which gives you like a smooth look. Does reduce the adjustability of the watch though, and as you can see, the links here are not the smallest, so that could be problematic. Tends to be more of an issue on smaller wrists, I find, than bigger wrists, where proportionally the percentage of change is higher. So this one is the K004, and this one has like a waffle style dial. And unlike the last one, I don't think this is like a direct copy of anything. Obviously, it's got the Genta inspired dial though. Now this one looks pretty impressive, arguably a bit more so, I'd say. Does have a date wheel on this one too, on the right hand side there. And straight out of the box, no obvious alignment errors this time. Perhaps using the significantly wider markers just helps alleviate that a bit. Must be a bit easier to deal with if you're making these by hand. The logo on this one's also positioned slightly lower, as you can see. It's presented in a bit of a larger font too. I think overall maybe prefer that positioning and generally the overall proportions of this dial. And it also combines the two effects with the 3D waffle and then the gradation as well towards the edges. And I'm just having a look up close here. Yeah, it's not actually like a typical square waffle dial. They're almost like mini pyramids in there, each one of them. Not extremely tall by any stretch, but does add slightly bit of differentiation from your standard square finishes. Each one just has its own mini peak. The level of detail does seem pretty good on this one. Everything else though does feel the same. And like I said, that should extend to the spec sheet. Now, the movement powering these watches is the Miyota 9015, which is a really good little movement, actually, much better than the 8000 series Miyota. Not only is quite a lot quieter in operation, but also is nice and slim, which keeps these watches nice and thin. And it also operates at a nice high beat rate too. So you'll notice on both of these watches that the seconds hands smoothly sweep around the dial, you get many more beats per minute, which just looks a bit more graceful, doesn't it? Both of these using the standard 316L stainless steel as their case material. Also have that crown icon there on the crown, ironically. But yeah, 316L stainless steel. Both also have a screw down crown from what I've just felt there, yeah, as well as a nice screwed case back, which combines to give you a decent 100 meters of water resistance a pop, all without it protruding too much. So you can dunk these, swim in them, kind of do whatever you want really. And while we'll test the lume in a minute, I can test the crystal right now. So as our control piece here, we got the Christopher Ward C63 Sealander GMT, which I should hope is a sapphire crystal considering the cost of this one. And as you can see, get a nice solid 4-bar rating there, which is what we're going to be looking to achieve on the Addy skin, if this is indeed sapphire crystal, which I'm sure it is. And yeah, we get exactly the same 4-bar rating there. So yeah, this is definitely a sapphire crystal. I'll just check the other watch real quick, but I'm assuming these are assembled in exactly the same factory. This one seems to score a tiny bit higher perhaps. Both will be nice and scratch resistant, and crystal clarity is okay on each of these too. Compared to some of the watches I've covered recently, it might actually be a bit better than those. And I can't see any obvious anti-reflective coating on these, which makes it a bit more impressive maybe. Now on the listing it says anti-reflective blue film, but as you can see there really isn't any blue cast on this whatsoever. So whether that is just straight up untrue or whether it's just quite a clear film in reality, I don't know. But what I can say is you can actually see these quite clearly. As for sizes, these two should both have the same proportions. It advertises 39mm online, but I'm getting that at 38.9 wide. Now, lug to lug really depends on where you measure because of those kind of fixed end links there. Now, they are actually part of the bracelet, but as you can see, they do protrude a tiny bit. If you want the natural lug to lug, you're talking a really short 44.2mm. And then with those included in that measurement, it's bang on 48. You can kind of see how it was designed with that in mind. And this is quite a thin watch indeed for a bezeled automatic watch. A hair maybe under 10mm there. Certainly looks like a similar shape to the likes of the Tissot PRX or especially those Timex Continental watches I've looked at recently. Very similar to those. I'll just double check the K001. Again, yeah, maybe a hair under 39mm. And yeah, all the rest of these measurements indeed are the same. Yeah, this one definitely coming in at 9.9. Oh, and that's with the little film still on the back too on both of these. It's about 9.8. Now I've just slipped into the Addy skin here, and as you can see, maybe it looks a tiny bit on the larger side for a 38.9mm watch. I think some of that's just from the integrated bracelet shape, which often involves the watch being a tiny bit wider up here, and this one being quite thin also has a bit of a pancakey profile almost. Now my wrist is only 6¼ inches big, so really small, and as such this should still be fine on the vast majority of wrists, and you'll have no problems getting under any sleeves here too. This is a really thin watch. Certainly looks thinner than 10mm, doesn't it? As you can see, my sleeve's already kind of pushing its way over it. Now, each of these watches do also come in numerous other colours too, so it isn't just the ones I'm showing in this video. I'll affiliate link them down below if you do want to check them out for yourself, by the way. And if I've got any discount codes for AliExpress, I'll also leave them there too, because AliExpress does bombard me with them basically, and it would seem a shame not to share them with you guys. I imagine you could probably get both of these watches for considerably under 200, depending on when you shop. Now, I don't know whether it's the larger markers or something, but for some reason, the dial on this one just looks more compact, like it fits me a tiny bit better. I don't know what you guys think. One thing I know for sure is that those larger markers should give this one a bit better low light visibility than the other watch, because this one just has tiny dots around the edge and then super skinny hands. But either way, they do well to improve on the previous Addy's dive performance, because remarkably, the previous Addy's dives had luminescence that was honestly as good as Rolex. Genuinely tested them both against each other, which is a pretty cool achievement for a low-cost watch brand like this. Out of the two watches here, definitely prefer this K004 myself, just with the added texture. Almost gives it like a slight shimmer, as you can see, although no traditional sunburst with either of these. And while the crystals on these are both about average, I do think that this kind of yellowy orange tone just punches through the crystal a bit better than the blue for whatever reason. Blue just looks more hazy naturally. So yeah, this one certainly has a bit more pizzazz about it, but not the most original kind of design. I think we've seen a lot of waffled hour watches over the last few years. But either way, these are still remarkably detailed watches for the money, no doubt about it. Let's see how they hold up under low light, eh? Now, it is quite dark in here, so these two might have a bit of an advantage here today. We can see the difference in legibility straight away with this UV torch on. Yeah, on the side here it says BGW9, which is the most common of this stuff. Tends to be pretty good though. And straight away, yeah, you can see the huge disparity between the two. Not that low light performance is everything with a watch by any stretch, but it's not only the distribution of the lume, but I also think that the one on the right, maybe because it's a thinner application, it's already faded substantially quicker. Whereas the one on the left is, yeah, really good luminescence on that one. So there's your first look at this new sub-brand from China's most popular ultra affordable watch brand. I mean, these are clearly pretty nicely made watches as a whole. You know, got some impressive technical things on show here, but certainly not perfect. This one on the right definitely has some slight alignment issues there. And the branding, well, maybe that's the thing that makes it the hardest to wear. And it really surprises me, you know, that when these Chinese watch brands are coming up with this sort of stuff, the same brands that contact me quite frequently, that they don't, you know, ask my opinion beforehand, or the other YouTubers perhaps, because this is something I would have instantly picked up on if we'd done any sort of testing. For a price, of course. I don't work for free, but I mean, it wouldn't exactly take a trained eye. When I said the name needed changing, this wasn't exactly what I meant.